For some time, I've been obsessed with the Kodak film look. No matter how much I tried, I simply could not get it to look right. Even watching tutorials did not help, because most of them were using the same plugin, and I did not want to have the same look as everyone else. I was at my wit's end. This is pointless. I was about to give up, but then I remembered. A year ago, I shot 3 rolls of Kodak Gold. That is more than enough material to get inspired. So I got to work, grabbed my hard drive where the scans were, and printed a few of them to have both physical and digital reference. This way I can see the difference between how it looked printed and digital and find the sweet spot for the final color grade. Now, let's see what we got here. Slightly green or teal shadows, amber or pale orange midtones, very bright pale yellow highlights. I noticed though that some of the blue tones tend to be more cyan or aqua. Noted. And now, the most important part, skin tones, which seem to be in a range between yellow and orange. Muted, not vibrant, and with 0 red and magenta in them. Interesting. Alright, I opened DaVinci Resolve and started with the base of the look, 2 color space transforms to convert my footage to the DaVinci color space, and from there to the Cineon film log color space, which lets me use the Kodak 2383 D65 LUT properly. First, I corrected my exposure by lifting the image, then increasing the gamma, and lowering the gain, keeping an eye on the waveform because my aim is to keep the image away from the upper and lower limits. Next, I'm adding some contrast, but only in the brighter areas using the contrast and pivot to somewhere around here. Then with the log wheels, I'm going to fine-tune the shadows, midtones, and highlights, still keeping an eye on the waveform. Now for the final touch on the contrast and fade, the tone curve tool, unlinked in order to not affect the colors. Lower the white point to mute the highlights a bit, lift the black point to add that slight fade in the shadows and darker areas, and now a midpoint to create a slight S in the curve, somewhere around here. This is good as I aim to have everything be subtle rather than excessive. Now to change the hues and remove the redness in the skin, I'm going to use the hue and saturation color warper, set to 12 points and using the HSV color model as it never fails me. Let's pop it out and move magenta towards red and red towards orange a bit. Now yellow slightly towards orange, and now what is yellow-green, move it towards middle green. Purple a bit towards blue, and blue a bit towards aqua. Besides the interesting hue shift that the film produces, I noticed something else. Depending on the time of day, the saturation of the colors was different. Midday, all colors appear to be very rich and vibrant, but the photos that were taken at dusk seem less vibrant. Then let's add saturation in its own node and increase it slightly. And this seems to have solved the issue. Now let's finalize the amber orange tone. Back to the tone curve tool, but only on the blue channel this time. 1 point down here to lock in the darker areas in place, and then another point somewhere in between the shadows and midtones, and bring it down to add some yellow. Perfect. Now let's finish the color part. Let's use the log wheels again to make the shadows slightly green, amplify the amber tone in the midtones, and give the highlights not a pale yellow tint, but a cooler one by adding a bit of aqua. Now for the bloom, it seems that the Kodak film is creating some soft desaturated halation type of bloom, which means I will not use the regular bloom, but instead, I will add halation, isolate the regions I want it to be applied to, and change the threshold to somewhere around here. This looks good to me, as I do not want the entire image to be hazy due to the bloom effect. Then zoom in and decrease the saturation so I don't see any red or orange anymore. Then decrease the strength and gamma to just have the bloom wrap around the areas it affects. Now, the final ingredient to all of this, grain, with the simple 35mm preset, as all my photos were taken on 35mm film. But with the grain size a bit smaller than the preset offers, and also with a not so intense grain texture. Now, if you want this process to be easier and faster for you, then grab the power grade of this look, which is in the pinned comment right now. After you download it, just import it into DaVinci Resolve, switch it to your camera log profile, then tweak it if you need to match your footage. And if you enjoyed this daytime film emulation, I got a nighttime film emulation just for you in this video.